How close did the Boston Red Sox come to landing one of the best third basemen in baseball? Closer than they are letting on. And what happens now to a $90 million outfielder who no longer has a spot in the lineup? Stick around, because both of these situations tell you everything you need to know about where this front office is headed, and neither answer is going to make Red Sox Nation feel comfortable. Quick favor before we get into it. If you are riding with us through every move, every rumor, and every front office head-scratcher this offseason, hit that subscribe button right now. Over 92% of people watching this have not subscribed yet. It is completely free, takes about 2 seconds, and it means everything to this channel. Already subscribed? You are one of the good ones. Thank you. Now let us get into this. Let us start with Alex Bregman, because this one still stings. If you followed the Bregman sweepstakes this offseason, you know the Red Sox were in the mix. They were not just tire-kicking either. Boston was in serious conversations, making real offers, flying close enough to the sun that fans started dreaming about a Bregman in a Red Sox uniform patrolling the hot corner at Fenway. And then, just like that, he signed with Chicago. The Cubs locked him up for a reported $182 million over 6 years, and the Red Sox were left standing in the cold. But here is where it gets interesting, and honestly a little maddening. According to reports, Boston was not that far off financially. They were in the ballpark. So what exactly went wrong? Why did a player who was reportedly considering Boston end up in Wrigley Field instead? 2 words. No trade clause. Bregman wanted a no-trade clause in his contract. That is not unusual for a player of his caliber. When you are a 2-time All-Star, a World Series champion, a guy who has proven himself at the highest level for nearly a decade, you want some say in where you play. You want security. You want to know that if the team decides to blow things up in year 4, you are not getting shipped off to Kansas City without a conversation. That is completely reasonable. The Boston Red Sox said no. The Red Sox have a well-documented institutional resistance to including no-trade clauses in their contracts, and that policy did not bend for Bregman. Couple that with the organization's known preference for structuring deals with deferred money, meaning they want to push some of the salary payment years into the future to manage their luxury tax situation, and suddenly you can see exactly how a deal falls apart even when the dollar figures are close. Picture this. You are Alex Bregman. You have 2 teams offering you roughly similar money. One says, here is your contract, we will give you full control over your future with a no-trade clause. The other says, here is your contract, we prefer deferred payments and we do not do no-trade clauses. Which pen do you pick up? That is not even a close call. And look, you can understand the Red Sox's position from a business standpoint. No-trade clauses limit flexibility. They can handcuff a front office when things go sideways. Deferred money helps manage cash flow and tax thresholds. These are real considerations. But here is the question you have to ask. At what point does structural discipline start costing you actual talent? This is not the first time Boston's financial rigidity has come up in free agency conversations. It will not be the last. And when the guy you missed out on is the caliber of Alex Bregman, a legitimate difference maker who would have transformed this infield overnight, you start to wonder whether the policy is serving the team or serving the spreadsheet. Red Sox Nation deserves a straight answer on that. And right now, they are not getting one. Now, let us talk about the other side of this roster puzzle, because while everyone was focused on who Boston was trying to bring in, there is a growing situation involving someone already on the roster who is becoming increasingly difficult to talk about. Masataka Yoshida. $90 million. 5 years. And right now, no clear spot in the outfield. When the Red Sox signed Yoshida before the 2023 season, the logic made sense on the surface. He was a proven run producer in Japan, a disciplined hitter with an exceptional eye at the plate, someone who could come over and be a cornerstone offensive piece. And in his first 2 seasons, he showed flashes of why that investment was made. But here is the problem, and it is a big one. The Red Sox's outfield has evolved around him in ways that have made his role increasingly murky. Boston now has Jarren Duran entrenched in center field after his breakout season. They brought in Wylier Abreu. They have Walker Jenkins coming through the system. When you start mapping out the outfield depth chart for 2025 and beyond, Yoshida's name keeps getting pushed to the side, and there is no clean answer for where he fits. And the contract? $90 million total, with significant money still left on the books. That is not a number you just eat. That is not a player you quietly send to AAA and hope nobody notices. That is a financial commitment that demands a solution, and right now the Red Sox do not appear to have one. Here is where it gets really uncomfortable. Trading Yoshida is not as simple as picking up the phone and finding a taker. His defensive limitations make him a tough sell to teams who need outfield versatility. He projects best as a designated hitter or a corner outfield bat, which narrows the market considerably. Any team acquiring him is also taking on a sizable chunk of salary, and in today's baseball economy, that conversation starts with the acquiring team asking Boston to eat a significant portion of that contract. So you are looking at a situation where the Red Sox either absorb a roster spot for a player without a defined role, or they trade him and take a financial hit to make it happen. Neither option is great. Both are the direct result of roster planning that did not fully account for how quickly this outfield group was going to develop. That is a tough spot for any front office to be in, but especially for one that prides itself on being methodical and forward-thinking. And here is the thing that ties these two stories together. The Bregman situation and the Yoshida situation are not separate problems. They are symptoms of the same underlying tension inside the Red Sox organization right now. On one hand, you have a front office that is philosophically committed to structure. No trade clauses create inflexibility, so we do not do them. Deferred money helps us manage our financial obligations, so we lean into it. These are policies, and the front office follows them consistently. On the other hand, you have real-world consequences playing out in real time. A star third baseman chose elsewhere because the structure was more important than the star. An outfielder with a massive contract has no clear role because the roster evolved faster than the contract allowed for. At some point, fans have to ask whether the philosophy is actually building a championship roster, or whether it is just building a very well-organized also-ran. Look, this is not a doom and gloom take. The Red Sox have real pieces. Duran is a legitimate star. The pitching staff has upside. The farm system has improved. There is something to build on here. But the margin for error in the American League East is razor thin. The Yankees are not going to be polite about this. The Orioles are young and hungry. The Blue Jays are not going anywhere. In that environment, missing on a player like Bregman over a no-trade clause is not a minor footnote. And carrying a $90 million contract without a defined role for the player is not a rounding error. These are meaningful organizational decisions that directly impact whether this team is a legitimate contender or a team that perpetually hovers around the playoff bubble. Red Sox Nation has seen this movie before. And the ending is rarely satisfying. So where does this leave things heading forward? Watch the Yoshida situation closely over the next few weeks. If a trade does materialize, pay attention to the return. If Boston is giving money back to make a deal happen, that tells you everything about how motivated they are to clear the logjam. And if Yoshida is still on the roster when spring training opens, then you are looking at a very crowded outfield conversation that someone in the clubhouse is eventually going to have to answer for. As for the Bregman miss, it is worth monitoring whether the Red Sox make any public acknowledgement of how close they were and what broke down. Right now the organization is being quiet about it, which is their right, but silence has a way of letting speculation fill the vacuum. And in Boston, that vacuum gets filled very, very loudly. If you want to see how this all shakes out, stay locked in with us here at Red Sox Today. We are going to be all over every transaction, every roster move, and every front office signal between now and opening day. If you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the Red Sox should bend their no-trade clause policy for the right player? And what would you do with Yoshida? Let us hear it. As always, this is Red Sox Today. Stay informed, stay passionate, and we will see you in the next one.